Ellis was a poor man who worked as a laborer in a big city. He had come from his small village to earn money for his family. Every day, he woke up early and searched for work, but for many days, no one gave him a job. His savings were finished, and his stomach was empty. He wore old, torn clothes, and his shoes had holes in them. People on the street often ignored him, but Ellis still hoped that maybe tomorrow, things would get better. He missed his family very much. His wife and two small children were waiting for his money at home. He wanted to send them food and some money for school, but now he had nothing. Sometimes, he sat near the roadside, looking at the busy people passing by, thinking how different their lives were. He wished he could live a simple, peaceful life again with his family. One evening, his phone rang. It was his wife. Her voice was full of sadness and fear. She told Ellis that there was no food left at home and the children had not eaten since morning. Ellis felt his heart sink. He wanted to help, but he didn't even have money to buy himself dinner. After the call, he sat on the footpath, holding his head in his hands. He looked around, thinking if anyone could lend him a little money. He went to some shopkeepers and asked for work, even for a single day, but everyone refused. Some said they had no work, others told him to come later. The sky was getting dark and Ellis still had no food, no money, and no hope. He silently prayed that someone somewhere might help him before it was too late. Ellis sat quietly on the cold footpath, his phone still in his hand after the call from his wife. Her trembling voice kept echoing in his ears. "There is no food left, Ellis. The children are crying." His heart felt heavy like a stone. He wanted to shout, to cry, to do something, but he could do nothing. He looked at the few coins in his pocket, not even enough to buy bread. He thought about his family's small home in the village. He could see his wife's tired face and his children's hungry eyes in his mind. He felt ashamed that he couldn't provide for them. For many days, he had been searching for work, going to construction sites, markets, and factories, but everyone told him the same thing: no work today. Still, he didn't want to give up. That night, Ellis walked through the empty streets, hoping to find something, maybe a small job, maybe someone kind enough to help. He stopped near a small tea stall and asked the owner if he could clean or lift boxes for a few coins. The man looked at him and said coldly, "No work here. Go away." Ellis lowered his head and walked away. He sat again under a streetlight, feeling the cool night wind. His eyes filled with tears. He looked at the stars and whispered, "God, please help me. My family is hungry." He didn't want money for luxury, just enough to feed his family for one day. But even that seemed impossible now. In the distance, he saw people laughing, drinking tea, and talking happily. No one noticed the tired, hungry man sitting alone by the road. That night, Ellis realized how hard life becomes when no one cares, and how painful it is to be poor in a world that never stops moving. The next morning, Ellis woke up on the same footpath where he had slept the night before. His body ached, and his stomach growled with hunger. He looked around and saw people walking fast to their offices, buses honking, and shopkeepers opening their stores. The city was alive, but for Ellis, every day felt the same, empty and hopeless. He stood up slowly and decided to try again. He went from one construction site to another, asking if anyone needed a worker. "Please, sir, I can do any kind of work," he said to one man. But the man only shook his head and said, "We already have enough workers." Ellis forced a small smile and walked away. He didn't want to cry in front of anyone. At noon, the sun was strong and Ellis felt weak. He stopped near a fruit stall and asked the shopkeeper, "Can you give me one banana, sir? I will pay later." The shopkeeper frowned and shouted, "Go away. I am not running a charity here." People nearby looked at Ellis, some laughed quietly and some just ignored him. He walked away again, trying to hide his tears. He sat under a tree and thought about his wife and children. Maybe they were still hungry. Maybe his wife was crying too. His heart was breaking, but he tried to stay strong. He whispered to himself, I can't give up. I must find a way. As the day passed, Ellis kept walking, his legs trembling with tiredness. The sky turned orange as the sun went down, and he still had no job, no money, and no food. He sat again on the footpath, his hands covering his face. At that moment, he felt completely alone, like the world had forgotten him. But he didn't know that soon, someone would notice his pain and change everything. As the evening sky turned dark, Ellis sat quietly on the side of the road, tired and weak. The streetlights flickered, and the sound of passing cars echoed around him. He had not eaten since yesterday, and his body felt heavy. He looked at the people walking past. Everyone seemed busy with their own life. No one even looked at him. Ellis thought to himself, maybe this is how poor people disappear, silently, without anyone caring. Just then, a young boy walked by, holding his backpack. His name was Thomas. He was a college student, around 20 years old, and he was on his way home after his evening classes. As he walked, he noticed Ellis sitting on the footpath, his face full of sadness and exhaustion. Thomas slowed down and looked again. Something in Ellis's eyes made him stop. He walked closer and said softly, Sir, are you okay? Ellis looked up slowly. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. No one had asked about him in days. His lips trembled as he replied, I'm fine, just a little tired. But Thomas could see the pain behind those words. He sat beside Ellis and asked again, Are you hungry? You look unwell. Ellis hesitated. He didn't want to sound like a beggar. But after a long pause, he quietly said, I haven't eaten since yesterday. I just couldn't find any work. Thomas felt a deep sadness in his heart. He opened his small bag, took out a sandwich, and offered it to Ellis. Please eat this, he said kindly. Ellis stared at the food for a moment, his eyes filling with tears. He took it slowly and whispered, Thank you, son. God bless you. Thomas smiled gently, unaware that his small act of kindness had just brought light into a man's darkest night. Ellis finished the sandwich slowly, every bite filling not only his empty stomach, but also his heart. It had been many days since anyone had shown him kindness. Thomas sat beside him quietly, watching him eat. The street was calm now, most shops were closing, and only a few people walked by. The light from a street lamp fell on Ellis's tired face, showing lines of pain and struggle. When Ellis was done eating, he looked at Thomas and said softly, You don't know what you just did for me, son. My family hasn't eaten in 2 days. I didn't know what to do. Thomas's eyes softened. Do you have family here? He asked. Ellis shook his head. No, they are in my village. I came here to earn money, but I haven't found work for weeks. Thomas reached into his pocket and pulled out his wallet. Inside, he had the small amount of money he usually saved for his college expenses. He looked at Ellis and said, Please take this. It's not much, but maybe it can help you. Ellis's eyes widened. He quickly shook his head. No, son, I can't take your money. You are young, this is your hard work. But Thomas smiled and placed the money in Ellis's hand gently. Sir, sometimes helping someone is more important than money, he said. Ellis couldn't hold his tears anymore. His hands shook as he held the money close to his chest. Thank you, my boy. I will never forget your kindness. Thomas stood up, smiled warmly, and said, Take care of yourself, sir. Better days will come. Then he walked away into the night. Ellis watched him go until he disappeared down the street. For the first time in a long while, Ellis felt hope. One stranger's kindness had reminded him that goodness still existed in the world. The next morning, Ellis woke up with a different feeling in his heart, hope. The money Thomas had given him was still safely tucked in his pocket. It wasn't a large amount, but to Ellis, it felt like a treasure. After many days of darkness, he finally saw a small light. He stood up, stretched his tired body, and decided to use the money wisely. First, he went to a small food stall and bought a little breakfast. The warm bread and tea tasted like heaven. With the remaining money, Ellis went to a nearby shop that offered a money transfer service. He sent part of the money to his wife in the village. When the shopkeeper confirmed the transfer, Ellis smiled for the first time in many days. He imagined his wife's face lighting up with relief when she received the money. He stepped outside, sat on a bench, and looked up at the bright sky. For the first time in a long while, it didn't look dull or gray. "Thank you, God," he whispered. "And thank you, Thomas." He wished he could meet the young boy again, just to tell him how his kindness had changed everything. Later that day, Ellis called his wife. Her voice was filled with joy. "The money came. I bought food for the children." "Thank you, Ellis," she said happily. Hearing that, tears rolled down Ellis's cheeks. "Thank that boy, not me," he whispered to himself. That night, Ellis sat under the same streetlight where he had met Thomas. But this time, he wasn't sad. He felt peaceful and thankful. He looked at the people passing by and silently prayed for them too. He promised in his heart that if he ever saw someone hungry or hopeless, he would help, just like Thomas helped him. A few days passed after Ellis met Thomas. Life slowly began to change for him. One morning, while walking near the market, Ellis noticed a small signboard, "Laborers needed for road repair." His heart jumped with joy. He quickly went there and asked for work. The supervisor looked at him and said, "You can start today." Ellis almost couldn't believe it. After so many days of hunger and struggle, he finally had a job again. As he worked that day, he felt strength returning to his body. Every shovel of dirt, every drop of sweat felt like a prayer of thanks. He thought about Thomas, the kind student who didn't know how deeply he had changed Ellis's life. Without that little help, Ellis might not have survived those hard days. When he received his first payment after a week, Ellis didn't go to eat at a fancy place. Instead, he went to the same street corner where he used to sit. There, he saw an old beggar sitting under a tree, shivering in the cold. Ellis walked toward him, took out some money, and placed it gently in his hand. The old man looked up in surprise. Ellis smiled and said, "It's okay, sir. Someone once helped me when I needed it most. Now it's my turn." That night, Ellis felt peace in his heart. He finally understood the true meaning of life, kindness, compassion, and humanity. Money comes and goes, but good deeds stay forever. He looked up at the stars and whispered, "Thomas, wherever you are, thank you. You didn't just feed me, you taught me how to live." Ellis continued working honestly, helping others whenever he could. His life still wasn't perfect, but now it was filled with purpose and light, all because one stranger decided to care. And so, Ellis's story teaches us something beautiful. Even a small act of kindness can change someone's life forever. Thomas didn't give Ellis a fortune. He gave him hope, faith, and a reason to smile again. Sometimes, we don't realize how powerful a single kind gesture can be. In a world where people often ignore pain, being kind is the greatest gift we can offer. You never know, your little help might save someone's life or bring peace to a broken heart. Ellis learned that day that humanity still exists. He carried that lesson forever and became a light for others, just as Thomas had been for him. Moral: never hesitate to help someone in need. Kindness costs nothing, but its value is beyond measure. If you liked the story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share to spread more heart-touching and meaningful tales. Stay connected with Dark and Deep Tales, where every story reminds us that even in darkness, kindness still shines.